Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. AbuBilaal. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri. Yeah, all the masjids have opened up, but there is a bit of a khilaf issue here. Even the Council of Imams have not been able to issue a definite fatwa. It's like a divided fatwa as to what exactly to do. So one side is the opening of the masjid, the other side is the actual performance of salah. So it's a big issue there. Personally, I feel like they're taking things too quickly and they're doing things too fast, haphazardly, and they're not realizing, okay, opening the masjid is something, but then salah has to be maintained in its integrity, right? So in my view, I would say that depends on everybody else, how they are thinking. I would say so far we have performed salah at home. The circumstance has not been resolved. The crisis is still there, so no need to take unnecessary health risks to begin with, and additionally compromise the namaz itself. Until that namaz integrity has been restored, by extension of which the crisis has been resolved, I think salah should just be performed individually at home. Or if there is a Jumma, you can do at home. Any case, the previous bayan, if you guys remember, we started off on a concept that I said was a deeply philosophical concept. Those fundamental questions that a human being asks ultimately. Who are we? Where have we come from? What is our purpose? And we discussed the dynamics between that being a more spiritually inclined question as opposed to a materially inclined question. The more material aspect of that question is with regards to the biological construct of the human being. How is the human being being created? What is the purpose of this body? Why do we have limbs? Why do we have facial features? We find this dynamic concerning the origin of the human being. It's a dynamic between science or modern science and religion, evolution or creation. And it's a faction or two factions that are constantly in collision over the simple matter of humankind's origin. And we also find that ultimately only one of these two can give you the truth. Only one of these two can give you the definite answer. Why? Because the human being is not just a biological construct. There are spiritual elements to the human being that cannot be explained by material science. The application of logic in any field of study has to have formal logic and material logic. Material logic will define the tangibility of something. Formal logic will define the thought process behind it. The biological construct of the human being has a lot of similarity to other creatures, which is where science is deriving the theorem from. And the Quran explains this similarity. It's not to say that we are different from other creatures, because we do bear similarity to ape, to monkey, to other animals. The biological construct, even the Quran explains it, that all things, all creation is created from water. وَهُوَ الَّذِي خَلَقَ مِنَ الْمَاءِ بَشَرٍ. He has created from water the human being. That's in Surah Al-Furqan. In Surah Anbiya, وَجَعَلْنَا مِنَ الْمَاءِ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ حَيٍّ. And we made from water every living thing. So the root biological construct from the source origin, the cell, the molecule, whatever it is, I'm not familiar with the biology, is that we bear a biological similarity. But what distinguishes the human being from everything else? So in logic, you have the genus, that is the animal kingdom. Then you have the species, which is the human being. But the difference that distinguishes the human being is that man is a rational animal. And man's rationality is not defined by his brain capacity. It's defined by his capacity to think. It's his intellect. It's his emotions and his desires and. So ultimately, the question regarding the purpose of the human being can't be defined by the biological construct, because the body doesn't define the purpose. Another fundamental law in logic is that al-ma'ani qabla al-mabani, meaning precedes form. When you want to do something, when you want to make something, when you want to construct something, you don't just construct it and then give it a purpose. You give it an objective first. That's fundamental logic. You give it a purpose first. If you want to achieve something, you give that achievement an objective, a goal. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses this language that we understand of giving something purpose before form by explaining to us exactly what the origin of the human being is. When He first explains where the human being has come from, when He wants to create the human being, the Quran, the language of the Quran. And by the way, the Quran, a lot of people think that the Quran is a book of science, or it's got numerical miracles to it. So, they do things like adding up the characters in the Quran and say, look at this wonderful number, it correlates with this number, plus or minus this and that. The Quran is not a book of science or numbers. The Quran is a linguistic miracle. It is in the speech, the rhetoric and the language of the speech, that we derive these multiple layers of knowledges from the Quran. And Allah has structured His speech in such a way that the miracle is to be found in how much you can actually derive from so few words. You can explain an entire concept using just a single ayah, and even then it builds on from there. In the origin of the human being, the most popular ayahs that are used, and Allah explains the origin of the human being continuously throughout the Quran. Why? If you remember, going back to the previous khutbah, we explained that the present circumstance is headed in a direction that is fulfilling a lot of the eschatological signs that we have been given as Muslims. A lot of the prophecies are steadily being fulfilled, and the concept of eschatology here is that we are able to see the impending end coming in now, right around the corner. But you can't just define the end when you have not understood the beginning, because everything that has a beginning has an end, and it is the beginning that defines the end. So Allah continually explains the origin of the human being, because if you understand your origin, everything else falls into place. Once you've understood why you were created, your purpose will be defined by your own thoughts. In Surah Baqarah, He says, وَإِذْ قَالَ رَبُّكَ لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ. And when Allah said unto the angels, and this is an interesting concept, is that the human being was not yet created. He stated what He was going to do. In that, the rhetoric in the speech here is that He is giving the meaning before the form has come into being. He's giving the meaning and the purpose, explaining it before He has actually brought in the form. Inni ja'ilun fil ardi khalifatan. Fil ardi khalifatan. I am going to place on the earth a khalifa. Now again, the linguistic miracle is applied here, because a similar ayah or a similar statement He makes also to Nabi Dawood way after the creation of Adam. Ya Dawood, inna ja'alnaka khalifatan fil ard. He says, I am going to place you as a khalifa on earth. But in this ayah, He uses the same words in a different context. Inni ja'ilun fil ardi khalifa. I am going to place on the earth a khalifa. The previous statement, or the more recent statement in terms of in history given to Dawood alayhi salam, is the most simplistic statement. It's how you would speak generally if you had a cup of tea and you say, I'm going to put this cup on the table. That's simple language. Why would you not use simple language to define something of a simple action? Why would you use a complex language? Because this is not a simple matter. By emphasizing that foremost, it's the earth that is the destination, And then for that destination, there is something special coming to it. It's not just on the earth. This concept that is revealed in the beginning now puts into perspective why mankind is so obsessed with going to the moon or going to Mars. It really questions their logic, because that was not the destination. The destination was defined, fil ard. It's on the earth. It's not on any other planet. But what is the concept of the Khalifa? This is where the confusion arises. Because when he says to Nabi Dawood, I'm going to place you as a Khalifa on earth, the ard here in that ayah is not with regards to the planet, it's regards to the land of Israel. It was a designation as a form of governance. That's what was being described to Nabi Dawood. That your purpose, your status now has been elevated from prophet to prophet king. You are now not only a prophet who is going to bring revelation to the people, but you are also going to govern these people. You're going to establish a political rule, a diplomatic rule here in that land. But contextually, the same meaning cannot be applied to the human being as a whole. So it's a matter of confusion here. And this confusion is evident because even the angels were confused. Exactly what does this Khalifa entail? Because our understanding of Khalifa is state governance and leadership. And anybody who is elevated to that position of power can fall either way. He can be a very righteous ruler, or he can end up on the negative side. So they questioned, and their questioning is not as a matter of objection, it is a matter of seeking an understanding, a clarity. قالوا, they said, أَتَجْعَلُ فِيهَا, are you going to place there on earth مَنْ يُفْسِدُ فِيهَا, someone who will corrupt the earth, وَيَفْسِكُ الدِّمَاءَ, and is going to spread bloodshed, وَنَحْنُ نُسَبِّهُ بِحَمْدِكَ وَنُقَدِّسُ لَكَ, whereas we glorify you and praise you. And so this on the surface would be taken as they are objecting to it, but they are not objecting to it. Because angels do not have the capability of deducing knowledge. They don't have the capability of reasoning out. Not that they don't have knowledge, they have knowledge, but it's an intuitive knowledge that Allah places into them. And that's something we'll look at when we go, I believe, into the next session. So in order to understand what their Lord was intending, because they had seen with evidence that there were previous creations who ended up on the wrong side. They ended up corrupting, they ended up spreading bloodshed. And corrupting in this case doesn't necessarily entail just material corruption. It's also spiritual corruption, which is predominant. You need to kill the ideology of an individual before you kill the individual himself. Just desecrating the body doesn't mean you have destroyed the idea, the concept. So corruption also takes place spiritually. In the modern sense, if you were to analyze geopolitics and you look at the entire wave of secular West coming over and destroying religion, not just Islam, but also other world religions, they tried to eradicate religion by killing the masses, evident from the Crusades, and they saw that it failed. And subsequently, the strategy that was implemented was to destroy the people ideologically first. If you kill the ideology, if you kill their thinking and their philosophies, you have evidently destroyed those people in any case. The objective is not to kill the people, it is to kill the concept that they are bringing about. Now, this particular scene that was taking place when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made this statement and the angels responded, there is what we can see happening from the Quran, but there is also something happening that we cannot see, that we have to deduce by reading between the lines, because this is rhetorical speech. Understanding here that it was not just the angels who were present, that Iblis was also present when this statement was made. And it's interesting to note here that he has been quiet all this time. He has not had anything to say aside from what the angels said. He did not make any objection. So it's interesting to know exactly what he was thinking at that time. Because it's not to say that Iblis is an idiot. He's an intelligent being. He was created with intelligence. So there is a matter of deduction that he's doing at that time. And yet Allah did not exclude him from that gathering. He was in the heavens, so he heard what was going on. There's a deliberation that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has done at that point to allow Iblis to listen in order for him to be tested as well. And he is the knower of all things, so he knows which direction Iblis is going to go into. And in response to what the angels then said, are you going to place somebody who is going to cause corruption? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is responding by saying, Qala, He said, Inni a'lamu ma la ta'lamun. I know that which you do not know. That there is something about this being I am going to create that you do not know. Now, why would he say that unless he wanted to tell them what they did not know? Unless he was setting up the stage, so to speak, in order to now bring that knowledge out to them. This is what you call, if you were to break this down into a story, into a tale, this is what you call a twist in the plot. There's an element of suspense here, something phenomenal that's about to be revealed unto the people because they're in a state of not knowing. And so they are on the edge. They want to know what's going to happen next. What is this unique concept that is defining this new creation? As the Quran itself it's not a contemporary book, chapter 1 leading into chapter 2, and then there is a straight flow because the Quran gives knowledge on multiple levels. It has to be studied as you would study the stars and know how to make the connection so that you can navigate a particular path. In another ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala defines, before he makes another statement, before he has created the human being. In Surah Sad, he then says, وَنَفَخْتُ فِيهِ مِنْ ruh. And when I have breathed into him of my ruh, my spirit. This is where science stops. Because you have the biological form, but now something else is being added into the human being. Something else is being added to this creation, and that something is unique because it is from him directly. وَنَفَخْتُ فِيهِ مِنْ ruhin, from my spirit. His own spirit. That denotes that the ruh is something very, very unique. And in fact, that in itself is a poor choice of words because you cannot even define the ruh as something. It is not a thing that you can composite and define and put into perspective. There is no possible way of describing this element because this is the spirit of life. Allah Himself gives life from His own breath and He breathes into the individual, and this is the spirit of life. In a different language you would say the breath of life. It's what gives us the ability to live. It's what gives all creation the ability to live. It's not the same ruh that is breathed into other creations. It does not have the same properties. Animals have a different ruh. Plants have a different ruh. Even the planets and the stars that are constantly active, when Allah is saying He's the one who's governing them, it's by His command, His affair. And this is why He also explains in Surah Al-Isra, قُلِ الرُّوحُ مِنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّي. Say that the ruh is from the affair of my Lord. It's from Him. He's the one, when He's saying that He's governing everything and He's controlling everything and He's the one who's animating everything, bringing it to life, it's from Him. The ruh is from Him. This is an interesting concept because in eschatology there is a debate with regards to the special individual called Dajjal, because there are a lot of hadith that state that Dajjal is going to be born a human being. The real question then defies is, how do you define this particular being? Does he possess a nafs? And if he is a nafs that is like the human being, then he should be accountable for his actions, which means he would be resurrected on Yawmul Qiyamah and he would undergo judgment as well. However, there is no definition as to whether or not that's going to happen. The other element is that he has to be alive. If he doesn't have a nafs, he's not a human being inwardly, but he takes the human form, then what sort of ruh is he going to be given? Because the ruh has an inclination to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It doesn't matter how evil an individual might be. Ultimately, at the very, very base, that person is always inclined towards a spiritual plane. So how does an individual who is so evil end up having a ruh from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Now, this ruh is what defines the purpose. It's what defines who we are. So the composition of the human being is a trifecta. There are three components to the being. The self, which is the nafs, is the primary being. That's the one who is created. For that being to be brought into the material world, it must have a material composition. That's where the body comes in. Which is why in speech, you may say myself, meaning who you are, your identity, but you will always say my body, my hand, my eyes, because those are components that are not part of yourself. They are attached to yourself. They are not composite of yourself. They are addition. So the body is a separate unit. The soul is a separate unit. But without the third component, neither one can exist. So the ruh is what animates the soul, integral with the body. When you die and the ruh is taken out, the body decays into the ground and the soul is taken, or you are taken into a different world. The purpose now, that was to give you an understanding of exactly what the composition of the human being is, because without understanding that composition, you really can't go into the next step. In Surah An'am, he says, وَهُوَ الَّذِي جَعَلَ لَكُمُ النُّجُومَ لِتَهْتَدُوا بِهَا فِي ظُلُمَاتِ الْبَرِّ وَالْبَحْرِ قَدْ فَصَّلْنَا الْآيَاتِ لِقَوْمٍ يَعْلَمُونَ. He it is who has made the stars for you, that you might follow the right way, thereby in the darkness of the land and the sea, so that you can navigate. And we have made clear the signs for a people who know. So a people who have that knowledge or who pursue that knowledge, the signs are made clear for them to understand. And once you understand how to read the signs, the way you would read the stars, things start becoming clear. In another part of the Quran, in understanding the creation and the purpose of the creation, you have to understand it from the Creator's perspective. If an individual designed an electronic component like a computer, you need to understand it from the Creator's perspective, from the designer's perspective, the architect. What purpose did he intend for that computer to perform? In Surah Ad-Dariyah, he says, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. I have not created the jinn and the man except but to serve me. On the surface, when you look at this, you might think that the Quran is contradicting itself. Why would he say Khalifa on earth? وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. Why would he say that he did not create jinn and man for any other purpose but to serve him. And then in the beginning of creation, before he actually created the human being, he says that he's going to place a Khalifa on earth. So does it seem like a contradiction? Now we know that the Quran does not contradict itself. So there must be a correlation between Abd and Khalifa. The definition of Khalifa primarily is vicegerent. And the Khalifa serves the purpose of being an ambassador or an emissary representing the sovereignty of an ultimate ruler. And that representation essentially is servitude, because that's what abda means. An abd is a servant. Now, most of the time this word is confused and taken as worship. So if you look at some of the translations that are provided by different mufassirin, they will say that I did not create the jinn and man except to worship me. But worship is not the primary when it comes to the linguistic. The primary is servitude. You serve Allah by worshipping Him. That's how the language flows. So there is a correlation here between a servant and a vicegerent, an ambassador. What is the role of an ambassador? In international affairs, when a government sends an ambassador to another country, that ambassador is representing not the sovereignty of the destination, is serving the sovereignty of the origin. When a Canadian ambassador goes to the US, he is not serving US legislation. He has to abide by US legislation, but he is serving Canadian interests. He is an ambassador of the Canadian government. So the human being here, sent to earth as the destination, is not serving earthly interests. He is not serving material interests. He has to serve spiritual interests. This is heavenly diplomacy. When Allah is sending a Khalifa, He is sending someone who will represent Him on earth in terms of governance, in terms of also the process of creation. This is why He has given the human being the ruh from Him. And this ruh being directly from Him bears His attributes. So if Allah is forgiving, the ultimate forgiver, then the human being is also forgiving. Allah is merciful and the human being is also merciful. Allah is Hakam, He judges, and the human being also judges. Allah creates, so the human being also can create. There is of course a limitation to all those attributes. Allah can create and give life. The human being cannot give life. So the human being can create to a certain limit, and that's where it stops. So the human being's current pursuit in trying to replicate the human being is a very dangerous field. For those who have actually gone into those or know of these advances in current trends where they are trying to create a human being, to clone, the whole concept of cloning from the last 5 decades or so. I believe they've now succeeded in creating an actual heart from pig tissue and synthetic fibers, and they managed to get it pumping for a while. So really the definition here is understanding, is there any success that they will find in that pursuit? Because the biological form is just a biological form. Life comes from a different source. But there is one more thing that he explained that has not been understood or was not understood at that time. After Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told the angels, Inni a'lamu ma la ta'lamun, I know that which you do not know. So in Surah Baqarah, the next ayah, he says, وَعَلَّمَ آدَمَ الْأَسْمَاءَ كُلَّهَا, and he taught Adam the names of all. Translation is apparently a problem for many people because they end up mistranslating this ayah by saying he taught Adam the names of all things. There is no things in that phrase or that statement. Kullaha means all. In Arabic, when you say kullu, kullu is a singular form. each or one thing. Kullaha is a plural form, all thing, all whatever it is. So if you say kulla shay'in or kullu shay'in is where you're saying everything. Kul is every, and then shay is thing. So what does it mean when he's saying وَعَلَّمَ آدَمَ الْأَسْمَاءَ كُلَّهَا? He taught Adam the names of all. He did not teach Adam a vocabulary. He did not teach Adam a language. He did not teach Adam a set of words, how to conjugate or grammar or whatnot. He gave Adam, or the human being, a unique ability that is paired with the ruh that he has given the human being. And that ability is the ability that we are utilizing every day without realizing it, without even giving it thought. We use words and we use speech in defining things, in structuring things, in naming things, in identifying things, in the formulation of our knowledges and how we acquire knowledge. Knowledge is transmitted from individual to individual, not by psycho or psychic connection. It is transmitted by speech. When I'm speaking, I'm telling you something. You're listening to those words because you understand the essence of those words, what each word means, what it designates. This is the unseen element here that Allah is explaining. Inni a'lamu ma la ta'lamun. There is an unseen element that takes place here. It's a unique power that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given the human being. That when we have an object and we want to understand that object, we end up extracting or abstracting the essence of that object in order to conceptualize it. So that even when that object does not exist, by just saying the word, it is understood that it's referent to that object. This is called quiddity. Asking, what is it? You have the what, which is the object right in front of you. You want to know what the it is, so you extract the it, the essence from that object, so that it now sits in your mind. It comes into memory, and then you elaborate on it, you think on it, you contemplate on it, you deliberate on it, and you expand on it. This is how the human being acquires knowledge. So there is a third component here that Allah has highlighted as per the purpose of this human being. So far we have got Khalifa, then we have got Abd, and now He has given human being the ability to draw knowledge from his environs. And this is the primus here. This is what He shows to the angels. This is the primus, the primary objective of the human being, because you cannot be a Khalifa if you don't know how to be a Khalifa. You cannot be an Abd if you don't know what the purpose of an Abd is. If you don't know, you cannot be. Faith without knowledge is ignorance. You cannot just have faith in something if you don't know about it. That's ignorance. It's blind faith. You need to know Allah in order to have faith in Him. And so He says, ثُمَّ عَرَضَهُمْ عَلَى الْمَلَائِكَةِ. He placed things in front of the angels. فَقَالَ, and He said unto them, أَنْبِئُونِي بِأَسْمَاءِ هَؤُلَاءِ إِن كُنْتُمْ صَادِقِينَ. Tell me, inform me of what you can derive from this. Look at this object. Tell me what you can derive from this. Explain to me what this thing is. If what you are saying about the Khalifa is true, if you think that this Khalifa is only capable of bloodshed and corruption, show me your prowess. To which they replied, قَالُوا سُبْحَانَكَ. Glory be unto you. لَا عِلْمَ لَنَا. We do not have this knowledge. إِلَّا مَا عَلَّمْتَنَا. Except what you have given us. إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ الْعَلِيمُ الْحَكِيمُ. You are the great, you are the all-knower, the all-wise. So there is a knowledge that they have been given, or there's an ability to acquire knowledge that they have been given, which is quite different from the human being. They have intuitive knowledge. We have intuitive knowledge and deductive knowledge. And so He puts the human being to the test in front of the angels. Now, remember, there is another individual still there and is still observing everything. and has not yet made a comment so far. And he's watching everything happening. قَالَ يَا Adam, O Adam, أَنْبِئُهُمْ بِأَسْمَائِهِمْ. Show them now. Explain to them. Tell them show them the naming. Tell them of the names of these things. Show them what I have given you. فَلَمَّا أَنْبَأَهُمْ بِأَسْمَائِهِمْ. And when he was able to show them, قَالَ, Allah said to the angels and whoever was present there, أَلَمْ أَقُلْ لَكُمْ, did I not tell you, إِنِّي أَعْلَمُ غَيْبَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ, I know the unseen of the entire cosmos, the heavens and the material universe. That's what ard is denoting here. Whenever Allah uses samawat and ard in the same phrase, He's actually referring to the entire cosmos. There's the 7 heavens and then the material universe. There's the material universe which we know we can observe and study, and then there are 7 other realms that are superimposed upon that. وَعْلَمُوا مَا تُبْدُونَ وَمَا كُنْتُمْ تَكْتُمُونَ. And I know what you are concealing, and I know that which you are revealing and what you are concealing. Now the angels have no secrets, they have nothing to hide. So this statement is not directed to the angels. This is what gives you evidence that Iblis was present in that moment. There are 2 components here. There are knowledges that are kept hidden, and then there are knowledges that are known. And then from those knowledges that are known, there are knowledges that people keep concealed with them, and then there are knowledges which they impart unto others. This is an ability that an intellectual being possesses. A being that has got a concept of decisiveness, an ability to choose what to say and what not to say. That's a different philosophy altogether. The philosophy of, it falls under behaviorism as to why we keep secrets and why we don't. So now things start becoming clear that the concept of the Khalifa is not leadership or governance or politics or war or all those matters. Those are secondary matters. The primary matter here, the primary concept or purpose is knowledge. You need to have knowledge in order to become a leader. You need to know something so that you can lead and guide others who do not know. And it's elaborated by the 3 key elements here. Allama wa'allama. Allama is the knowledge relayed, meaning he taught Adam, he gave Adam some knowledge. And then Adam is the being here who is receiving that knowledge. Al-asma'a kullaha now. Its definition in a linguistic definition is through an ability to name and define. So what we primarily work with, see, modern science will tell you that, or the modern philosophy will tell you that science is the hallmark of human civilization. That since we've discovered science, that's how, we have had taraqi, we have got progress. Essentially, what the Quran is saying is that it's not science that's the hallmark of human civilization. Language is the hallmark of human civilization, because he taught Adam by giving him an ability to name and define. It doesn't matter which language you use, the essence of what you are defining will always remain the same. You can say a glass of water, a cup of water, you can say a pitcher of water. It does not matter what you define. The essence is that there is an object that contains water. You can say alma, you can say maji, you can say water. It doesn't matter which language you use. It doesn't change the essence of what you are defining. It's just a matter of understanding what that language is. So science might even say H2O, doesn't change the fact that it is water. It's just another language. So the science that is being used is just another language to define the essence of the same object that a layman can understand. If you put all these 3 together, then you have the psychological profile, the purpose of the human being. You have the vicegerent, who is the Khalifa, and he performs his right as a Khalifa by fulfilling the creed of Islam. Islam here we are using in terms of language, because this is the language we are relating this knowledge with. But Islam means something else in all other languages. In English, it means submission to the will of Allah. That's the essence of the word. Doesn't matter which word you use, the essence of the meaning, or the meaning of the word is submission to the will of Allah. So you fulfill the role of Khalifa by submitting to His will, by representing His will, by representing His sovereignty on earth. So a Khalifa is not just somebody who is elected to be a leader. Every individual is a Khalifa by himself. You are a Khalifa unto yourself by governing yourself. You are a Khalifa unto your peers. You are a Khalifa unto your family. And that is the fulfillment in Surah Al-Asr, وَتَوَاسَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاسَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. By enjoining each other with truth and enjoining each other with patience, that's how you fulfill the rule of a Khalifa. It's defined by Islam. And the knowledge of that is theology. If you want to study it as a subject, the subject that you would study is Islamic theology. The second element is allama or ilm, the knowledge, the essence of knowledge, not the subjective knowledge, not the subject knowledge, the essential knowledge. You fulfill that by fulfilling the tenets of Iman. You need to have a philosophy, a thought process, a way of understanding the world, a way of understanding reality, the material reality and spiritual reality, both in emotional belief and the desire to want to know more and to understand more. Faith without knowledge is ignorance. So Iman and Ilm go hand in hand. And understand that all knowledge comes from Allah, which is why He's saying, وَعَلَّمَ آدَمَ الْأَسْمَاءَ. He is the one who taught Adam. He did not designate a teacher. He did not appoint any of the angels to teach him. He is the one who taught Adam directly. So all revelation comes from Allah. Revelation in terms of earthly knowledges, ilmul mu'amala, demonstrative knowledges or demonstrative sciences, and ilmul mukashafa, which are spiritual knowledges or unseen knowledges, which is what the other ayah describes in the a'lamu ghayba samawat, the unseen knowledges and the worldly knowledges. He is the one who knows them both. So He is the source. The subject that you would do if you are going to study this as a subject, this particular element, the subject is the subject of philosophy. That is where you study this particular knowledge. It's not falsafa that we are looking at. It is the love of wisdom. If you have a love of wisdom, then you have a love of philosophy. The third component is abd, the servant. And how do you serve? You serve Allah by fulfilling the rights of ihsan, which is the third element. In the servitude of Allah, as though you can see Him. And if you cannot see Him, know that He can see you. In the hadith of Jibril alayhi salam, when he was asked, Rasulullah was asked that question, Ma al-ihsan, he said, An ta'bud Allah ka'annaka tara. You serve Allah. The word abd is used again there. You serve Allah as though you can see Him. This is what you call spiritual ascension of man, from the lowest of the low in the material realm to the highest of the high in the spiritual realm. It is not just a perfection of worship, which is usually what most will say. They'll say it is the perfection of deen. It's not the perfection of deen. It is just righteous conduct. Simply put, righteous conduct. By fulfilling the 5 pillars of Islam, yes. By fulfilling the 6 tenets of Iman, yes. And by being a good human being. It's as simple as that. Because know that every action you take, Allah can see you, even though you cannot see Him. So conduct yourself in a way as though you've got constant surveillance on you. Be consciously aware of Allah's presence. That is ihsan. And the path that you take is tasawwuf. It is spirituality. It's not Sufism. Sufism is an ideology. But tasawwuf is a path of spirituality. It's going towards that realm. You don't just get stuck with the rasm, with the rituals and the rites of just standing up in prayer or going hungry in Ramadan. No, you do it with a sense of awareness and presence of Allah. And the last element, of course, is an eschatology, but that doesn't fall into this category because that's now going into knowledges of the unseen or the unknown future. So you identify your purpose from the past and present, and then now you go from the known into the unknown. To conclude, this is my understanding. These are my deductions. This is my purpose. And by extension, this is what I see philosophically would be the purpose of all mankind, as is evident from the Quran itself. That Allah Himself has defined it. Now, I could be mistaken. I could be wrong. Maybe the purpose of the human being is to go to school, to study academics, to get a job, to build a career, to have investments, properties, to go on vacations, and then in your free time sit and play solitaire on the computer. Maybe that's the purpose. And then eventually leave everything behind and die. The question that every individual needs to ask themselves, you, the human being, be honest with yourself. You could be dishonest with others and have an outward image towards others. But be honest with yourself, because ultimately you will be judged according to your decisions. You, the human being here on earth, who are you? Where have you come from? And where are you going? Ultimately, that's the question that Allah asks. فَأَيْنَ تَذْهَبُونَ? Where are you going? Which direction are you going? This is the knowledge. This is the kitab He has sent down. It includes everything you need to know about yourself. So where are you going? Why would you study that textbook and derive your knowledge from there when all the knowledge you seek is right here? What is your purpose? Inshallah, next week, Jumma, we're now going to try and understand who, or rather why, our brother Iblis was quiet when all this was happening. Why didn't he say anything? Why didn't he object? Because you cannot have a protagonist in a story without the antagonist. If the human being is the protagonist of this epic, who is the antagonist? Who is the enemy? Who is the foe? And how does that foe impact us? What is his purpose? Inshallah, we'll get into that. Barakallahu feekum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.